Good morning. I'm Harley Schleinger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for July 21st, 2025. Let me begin by noting that I've heard from many of you through emails and messages of your concern for my absence over the last weeks. I had to go through some back surgery. I'm mostly recovered and I'm back on the job. It's an extremely important moment for clarity in the strategic situation, which I hope to be able to continue the work done by my very able colleagues, Diane Sayre and Dave Christie, in my absence. So I'd like to thank them for that. Thank all of you for your messages of concern. But let's get to the real issue now. What are we going to do about this crisis where the battle lines are drawn? We're at a moment of decisive need for action. And this was defined in the Berlin Conference last weekend by Helga Zepp-LaRouche when she talked about the punctum Saliens, that we're at a moment in history, a point between, a transition between two systems, one of which is collapsing, an unstable system of the transatlantic unipolar order, and another one struggling to come into existence, of a new strategic and development architecture, which is based on the ideas of cooperation and collaboration for mutual benefit. There's a lot of opposition to that coming from those who control the existing system. Now, when you look at this, you see chaos and turmoil, permanent warfare, coups, psychological warfare, media manipulation. So let me focus on two of the fronts in this fight right now, and we'll be covering during the course of the week a much more full picture as things evolve. But let me point out that on July 28th and 29th, there will be a conference on a two-state solution to resolve the crisis in the Middle East. This is not just a crisis. This is a moment which will define whether the human race has the morality to survive. The genocide against the Palestinians, the support from most of the transatlantic for Israel's war of extinction of the Palestinian people must be stopped. The conference on the 28th and the 29th is a call for a return to the idea of a two-state solution. Now, keep in mind the two-state solution is international law. If you purport to believe in a rules-based order, then you have to support the idea of a two-state solution. That's the only law that's on the books. And since 1948, there have been many wars, many fights, but that's still the basis of international law. Will we exist if we continue to turn our backs on international law? Now, for Israel, the idea is that they will not accept a two-state solution. And as much as they say that it's the Arabs who reject it, we see Netanyahu repeatedly acting in such a way as to prevent the possibility of a two-state solution. And by that I mean recognition of a Palestinian state living alongside in peace with Israel. The policy we see in Gaza, the attacks on the Palestinian population, on the healthcare system, on the education system, the deliberate enforced starvation, the cutoff of medical support, and the open calls from some people in the Israeli government to remove the Palestinians completely from Gaza, that's a violation of international law. So where is the world when it comes to law that's being violated? And the biggest perpetrator of this, besides the Zionist regime in Israel, is the support for them from the United States, first under Biden, and now, unfortunately, continuing under Trump, although Trump is now trying to push, so he says, for a ceasefire in Gaza. The solution is not a ceasefire. The solution is a policy for peace. And the only way a two-state solution will work is if it includes an economic policy which provides benefit to both the people of Israel and the Arab population of Palestine and the neighbors of those two countries. The problem is that the Israeli government is moving to annex more land in the West Bank to make it impossible to establish a Palestinian state with territorial integrity. If you break it apart so that there's no continuity, no territorial continuity, how do you have a state? And this is part of what's called the apartheid policy of Israel against the Palestinians. Sharon called it establishing facts on the ground. If you have more settlements set up in the West Bank, it makes it impossible to conceptualize an actual functioning state. And that's the whole purpose, or the policy rather, of the move to disrupt the Palestinian population in the West Bank, to annex the land. It's to deny to the Palestinians any capability to act as a sovereign nation. Now, I'll say more about this in the next few days, but the important thing is that this conference on the 28th and 29th is an opportunity to pull the world back to a commitment to sticking with the international law as established from 1948 to the present. And so we have a leaflet on this. I'll try to link it in the description section of today's update. And it's really absolutely crucial that people, instead of just shrugging their shoulders and saying, what can you do, take this and go out and educate people to understand this is not just a life and death issue for Palestinians and for Israelis, but for the human race. Now, secondly, of great significance was the release on July 18th of declassified documents by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, related to Russiagate. Essentially, what Gabbard is pushing with this is a return to accountability. And I'll just read you a couple of quotes from her office that go right to the heart of the issue. What she said is that these documents that are released, declassified, provide evidence of what she calls a treasonous conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people. She denounced the promotion of the Russiagate story by intelligence officials as narrative building, not intelligence. And in particular, she released documents from a December 8th, 2016 meeting of the President's daily briefing, in which the report was released or was prepared that showed that the intelligence community did not find any Russian interference in the U.S. election. A memo then out of that meeting was sent to Obama by James Clapper, who was at the time Director of National Intelligence, saying that it's necessary to put together a new assessment. In other words, to reject the findings of the intelligence community. And the whole idea of a new assessment is to change the policy. And that was released then in January of 2017, saying that they now found that there was evidence of Russian interference, and this was the beginnings of the takeoff of Russiagate, which was an attempt to turn the election of Donald Trump, to reverse the election of Trump, to portray Trump as a puppet of Putin, and to disrupt his capacity to achieve a normalization of relations with Russia. What Gabbard's doing is heroic. It's courageous, but it needs backup because the war hawks in both parties are going to do anything possible to disrupt this. When she's talking about treasonous activity, who's she talking about? Brennan from the CIA, Comey from the FBI, Clapper from the National Intelligence Office. People like Susan Rice and Victoria Nuland were involved, but specifically as well, Barack Obama. This has to be made to stick, because you cannot have a situation in which the president is weaponizing intelligence for the sake of a policy of war and chaos. And so what's crucial now, we'll have in the next couple of days links to documents. There'll be more coming out on this story, but it's crucial that you get on top of it, you talk to people about it, and support a move for full accountability for the corruption and disruption of relations between the U.S. and Russia, which under Joe Biden brought us to the brink of nuclear war. And if Trump is not able to carry out his mission of normalization of relations with Russia today, could put us again on the brink of nuclear war as the European nations and the war hawks in both the Democratic and Republican Party in the U.S. continue to push for war rather than a move to a new security and development architecture. So that's my report for today. Take these documents, get to work. We have a short period of time